Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. In this video, I am talking about Mini-Z white bodies. These are unpainted bodies that you can get that are identical to the fully detailed bodies, like this one, the auto scale bodies. Now, you're never going to get this level of quality paint and design unless you are exceptional at paint work, but it's a great way to get a nice body that you can race without worrying about destroying one of these. These are great for, you know, putting your car on your shelf for display purposes and whatnot. But if you can certainly race them, but at $50 a pop, they get torn up pretty easy. So a lot of people just, you know, get a nice one for display and then they work with the white bodies. Now, the McLaren P1 is supposed to be a pretty good race body. The Audi R8 is supposed to be one of the best for the 98 millimeter wide front end chassis. And so I picked up one of each. And there's some things you can do to improve these even further. Now, a lot of these bodies will come with a set of axles and a faux body or a faux undercarriage, so that you can make this look like the painted ones for display purposes. But most people just you know, toss this. You get a set of wheels, which you can certainly use. If you're using a better set of wheels, great. Now, another thing that you can do is to replace the stock plastic windows with a set that are stamped out of Lexan. And when you trim these out and glue them in place, they are considerably lighter. It's not a huge amount, but everything kind of stacks with these little cars, and the more weight that's up high, you know, that tends to make the car want to roll more easily. So anything you can do to reduce weight up high is a positive thing, and anything you can do to lighten the chassis overall is a positive thing. Now, there are times when you're going to actually add weight. Some cars have brass chassis, the pan type cars. For the MR03s, there are several different types of weights that you can add to the car, brass weights that you can add to the underside of the car that will lower your center of gravity and make the car less roll prone, make it a little more stable. So you know, weight is one of those things where sometimes you want it, sometimes you don't. It all depends on where it is and what the car is doing. Another thing that you can get to enhance these cars a little bit is a carbon fiber front lip. These just glue to the underside of the car up here, and it provides a little bit of a ground effect. How much that actually does for you is relative. You can also replace the rear wing with an adjustable wing. Some of them are made of thin pieces of carbon fiber. Some of them are made of Lexan, and you can bend them and adjust them to give you the desired amount of downforce, and that can make a really large difference, especially in high-speed turns. So even at the speeds these things travel, ground effects can definitely be a factor, and some bodies are definitely more aerodynamic than others, and just for whatever reason they just do better. So the Audi R8 is definitely one of the best bodies, and it's been that way for quite a while now. It's been one of the fast bodies since I was previously involved in Mini-Z about 8 years ago, and then the local track that or the local shop that had a track from time to time went away, and I sold all my Mini-Z stuff and got out of that. But it's come back around again, and so I'm back in the hobby. So I'm going to be striping up, painting up these bodies, and getting them ready. I like to go with kind of a consistent color scheme across cars sometimes, depends. Sometimes it just makes it easier to paint, makes it easier to recognize your car on track. I like the orange and light blue or teal combination of the old Gulf liveries from the Le Mans days in the 60s and 70s. Actually, they still sometimes do that color scheme today, but that's probably the colors I'm going to do, primarily orange with some light blue. This is actually, it's not a coral, yeah, it's called coral blue. And it's the closest thing that Tamiya makes right now in the enamel paints, in the enamel spray paints at least, to that light blue, Gulf blue. So anyway, that's the coloring that I'm going to be going on for these. And even if you're going to leave areas white, it's probably a good idea to hit them with some white paint, because sometimes you get discoloration in the molding of the plastic. You can see some dark spots here. You can see them through the other side. That's just some, you know, miscolored plastic pellets that went into the molding process when this this body was cast. So just little things to consider, you know, when you're painting your car. Now, all of the little detail items like side view mirrors, antennas, things like that, it depends on the class you're racing and the club that you're racing with. Some places want you to have the body be stock. In other words, you can't run the carbon lip. They might let you run the Lexan window glass, but they are not going to let you leave parts off to try to save weight. So the little window crystals, things like that, you're going to have to put all of those in place, side view mirrors, etc. And if they break off, you need to fish them up off the track and glue them back in before you run again the next time. And some places are very strict about that, and some places just don't care. So it's a good idea to, before you start investing in stuff, get to know your local club and what the requirements are for the various classes, so you know which classes you're going to race in and then what you need to do to be legal. And that pretty much goes for any type of RC, but Mini-Z can be a little more finicky for whatever reasons. And so bear that in mind when you know, before you go buy too many bodies and such. Another thing, there are several different, I think 4 main chassis lengths. 98 millimeters is the most popular. That is the second longest wheelbase. Now, longer wheelbase cars are going to be more stable at high speeds and straight lines. They're not as twitchy, and when you're racing with a bunch of cars, you tend to be racing on fairly large tracks, and so you want that stability. Now, there is the 102 millimeter wheelbase, and those are usually the long bodies, the Can-Am style, Le Mans style race car bodies. And those usually are a separate class, all their own. A lot of places, they will not let you run longer than a 98 millimeter wheelbase, even in the ready sets, in bone stock. Now, one of the things about stock class you're going to find is that a lot of places that run the stock class, they include the MR03s. Now, they would probably have to either switch out their brushless motor for a brush motor, or they would have to go down to a 3500 kV motor, some restriction like that, but they still get all the advantages of the better car. And when I say better, the electronics in these standalone Mini-Z chassis are huge. The lag time that from the time you make a turn at the radio to the time the wheels turn on the car is huge on the ready sets. They have terrible lag. I really do not recommend getting a ready set. You are more than likely going to be disappointed and frustrated. It takes an experienced driver to race them well. because of that lag issue, and you've kind of got to pick your turns ahead. You've got to know that you're about to turn, and everything's got to be a little preemptive. Throttle lags as well. Anything that involves the radio, any commands are going to be delayed in time. And the electronics that are in these are much more sophisticated. The braking and the throttle have more steps, if you will. It's smoother, and you have more control between no throttle and full throttle. Let's say if you want to call them steps. You also get things like a ball differential instead of the gear differentials that come on the ready sets, which tend to be very loose and make the car handle unpredictably. So spending the extra money to get one of the standalone chassis like the MR03 Evo, it's just one of the best right here, with the wide front end and the mid motor, you end up with a really solid, reliable car. And again, it is more money. You've got to invest in a good radio, but that pays off in the satisfaction of being able to actually drive it and not have it be this twitchy, irritating, frustrating car. Now, you can actually run the ready sets with the Noble NB4 transmitters. There is you have to buy about $45 RF module. You plug it in once, you upload some software, you refresh the radio, and it will then talk to the ready sets. Now, the car is still limited by its electronics, but the signal between the two is going to be considerably faster. So you're definitely going to have a much better experience, and it will still allow you to use the high-end features like endpoint adjustment, exponential, dual rates, etc. All of that stuff will work with this transmitter to the ready set cars. But you're not saving that much money at that point. So you're really better off going all in, getting the good car, but these don't have wheels and tires. Now, the ready set is going to come with cheap tires. These cars, there's so much for me to tell you, and I'm going to be covering, there's going to be a whole series of videos. I'm going to be showing you how to true tires. That involves having a little tire lathe where you grind the tires so they're perfectly round, and then you kind of polish the tire and round the edges a little bit, and you kind of massage these tires so that they are perfectly round, and you get so much performance out of that. You get so much more reliability and control over your car because they're so small, and the speeds they're traveling at to scale. I'll sit down and do the math for you guys at some point. But they're traveling at 4 or 5 times the scale speed of a real race car. Like 700 to 700 miles an hour or something ridiculous like that. So everything comes into play as far as the car being tuned properly, running smooth, and having your tires be smooth and true and not have bumps in them so that they oscillate and make the car, vibrate and whatnot. All of that comes into play. This is not an inexpensive way to race. Because of the size, things like tires become so much more important than, let's say, 1/10 scale. If you're running 10 scale VTA or USGT, you're running slower motors, you're not in mod class, you're not in open touring. So stock tires that you buy off the shelf, you don't really need to do anything to them. You can buy them pre-glued onto a set of wheels. In VTA, you might not even use a set of tires for an entire season. You might not wear them out. And you don't need to do anything to them. You don't have to put them on a lathe or do anything to them to have a good time and race competitively. So, if you're thinking about getting into Mini-Z, be prepared to make a commitment in time, effort, and money. Because there are as many tuning tools as you need for regular cars to work with these, especially when you start going to the pan chassis. and going away from these, which is up a level. I have one of those cars. It's one of the nicer ones on the market right now. It's a new model. I will go over that in detail and show you a full build, but that's coming up. Right now we're going to focus on the Kyosho car and the Kyosho bodies and a Fly Sky Noble radio. I'll show you this some of the body assembly as I go through this. Anything that's neat and interesting. For this body, I'm going to go ahead and just use the stock tail most likely. I do have some Lexan tails that I may use, but again, I'm still getting to know the track that I race at, and so I may just go with a fully stock build for this body at, when you consider that these are only about $25 a piece, and they do take a beating. I might just get another body when I want to go with a different type of tail setup. So we'll cross that bridge later. So, you know, these items, I may save both of these for the next version of this body. We'll see. Anyway, that pretty much covers the white bodies, other than just demonstrating the paint process and anything interesting that comes along with these. If you're a paint aficionado, if you've got an airbrush and you're skilled, knock yourselves out. If you're just a normal RC guy, you know, the best thing might be to just go with a single solid color. You know, 1 or 2 light coats. You don't want to put on so much paint that you're adding a lot of weight, because the whole idea of these cars is to keep them light, especially up high. So, you know, shoot carefully, you know, make sure that you get into the little crevices and whatnot. Don't put any of the parts on prior to painting your primary colors, and just take your time with it. And do light dustings, and you might even, if you get a couple of coats going, at some point you might do a little wet sand to thin it down. People do all kinds of stuff with these bodies to try to lighten them. Depending on the class they're running, they will, if it's allowed, they'll take a Dremel, they'll grind the insides of the fender wells, they'll grind away some of the strengthening ribs and things like that that make the body, help keep the body strong. As you can see, the front end here is a little flexible. That's why there's these little ribs right here. So ideally you don't want to get rid of those. But they'll do things like grind away parts of the motor mounts. They'll thin down the plastic in areas where it's thick. All kinds of stuff, trying to shed weight from these bodies. So as long as I'm talking bodies, let me pull another one for you. For the Pan car, which is an open mod class car, I'll probably be running a body like this. These are just clear unpainted Lexan. We got a few window masks and some stickers, and a wing bolts on right here, which is right here, that needs to be cut out. And you can paint these up any way you like. You paint from the inside just like a normal Lexan body. And then of course there is truck class, which is why I have this body. Some places don't race truck. Truck is an unlimited class. Basically, it could be an MR03, it could be a Pan car, it could have, you know, 850 kV motor in it and 1200 kV motor, whatever. There is no limit. Regular batteries, LiPo batteries, you name it, you can do it. And it's tends to be a fairly crazy, you know, speed class. So that's why I picked up the truck body, because ultimately I do want to run truck class just for kicks. I'll be doing that with a Pan chassis, probably two-wheel rear wheel drive. Some people like the all-wheel drive Mini-Zs. The two-wheel drives handle better, they turn better. Some people say they prefer the handling of a four-wheel drive car, but the fact is that even the manufacturer says the two-wheel drive, longer wheelbase cars, rear-wheel drive have the best handling. The front end does not have power to it. It is free to do as it wants, makes the car turn in quicker, etc. So, you know, feel free to experiment. If you own an all-wheel drive car, do not let that dissuade you from racing. Go out, run it in a class where it's allowed, and have a great time. You know, ultimately, that's what the hobby should be about, not about, you know, local rivalries and whatnot. You're having fun. You're racing toy cars. So above all, have a good time. Don't let personalities and stuff like that get in your way and get you down. Just go have fun. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel. If you click the bell icon, you'll receive notifications every time I launch a new video. Thank you for watching.